Marcus sat in the cramped holding cell, the cold metal bench pressing against his back. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh glare on the faces of the other detainees. He had never imagined he would find himself in this situation, charged with a nonviolent drug offense. The weight of the world felt heavy on his shoulders as he replayed the events that led him here. It had started as an ordinary evening. Marcus was walking home from his job at a local grocery store, his mind occupied with thoughts of his family and the bills that needed to be paid. He had dreams of becoming a mechanic, hoping to save enough money to enroll in a trade school. But those dreams felt distant now, overshadowed by the flashing lights of police cars and the shouts of officers ordering him to the ground. The officers had claimed they saw him exchanging something with another individual, a claim Marcus vehemently denied. He had been waiting for a friend, not engaging in any illegal activity. Yet, the color of his skin seemed to dictate the narrative. As he was handcuffed and led away, Marcus felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. He knew that the system often treated black men like him with suspicion and disdain, but he had hoped that justice would prevail. The next day, Marcus was introduced to Lisa, a young attorney who had recently joined the public defender's office. She entered the room with a determined look in her eyes, her briefcase in hand and a notepad ready for notes. "Marcus, I'm here to help you," she said, her voice steady and reassuring. "I want to understand your side of the story." As they spoke, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Lisa listened intently, taking notes as he recounted the events of that fateful night. He described the fear he felt when the officers approached him, the confusion as they accused him of a crime he didn't commit. Lisa's expression shifted from concern to determination as she realized the gravity of the situation. "I believe you, Marcus," she said firmly. "We need to gather evidence to support your case. There are systemic issues at play here, and I want to ensure that you receive a fair trial." Marcus nodded, grateful for her support. He could sense her passion for justice, and it ignited a spark of hope within him. As the trial date approached, Lisa immersed herself in research, uncovering statistics that revealed a troubling pattern. Black defendants often received harsher sentences than their white counterparts for similar offenses. She meticulously prepared her arguments, determined to challenge the biases that permeated the courtroom. On the first day of the trial, the atmosphere was tense. The courtroom was filled with spectators, some there to support Marcus, others to witness the proceedings. Lisa stood before the judge, her heart racing as she presented her opening statement. She spoke passionately about the need for fairness and equality in sentencing, emphasizing that Marcus was not just a statistic, but a human being with dreams and aspirations. As the prosecution laid out their case, Lisa listened carefully, taking notes and formulating her counterarguments. She could feel the weight of the biases against her client, and it fueled her resolve to fight for justice. The judge, a stern figure with a reputation for being tough on crime, seemed indifferent to the disparities Lisa had highlighted. It was clear that the battle ahead would be challenging. After a grueling trial, the jury deliberated and ultimately found Marcus guilty. The news hit him like a punch to the gut. Lisa felt a wave of frustration wash over her as she prepared for the sentencing phase. She knew that the judge had the power to impose a sentence that could change Marcus's life forever. In the courtroom, Lisa stood before the judge, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Your Honor, I urge you to consider the evidence of racial bias in sentencing. Marcus is not a criminal. He is a young man who made a mistake. He deserves a chance to rehabilitate, not a life sentence of punishment." Despite her impassioned plea, the judge handed down a severe sentence, one that left Marcus and Lisa in shock. As Marcus was led away, Lisa felt a deep sense of injustice. This experience ignited a fire within her, a commitment to fight against the racial disparities that plague the legal system. She vowed to work tirelessly on reform initiatives, determined to ensure that no one else would have to endure the same fate as Marcus. The battle for justice was far from over, and Lisa was ready to take on the challenge. As the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom closed behind Marcus, a profound silence enveloped Lisa. She stood frozen for a moment, grappling with the reality of the sentence that had just been handed down. The judge's gavel echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of the systemic injustices that plague the legal system. Marcus had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for a nonviolent drug offense, while statistics showed that white defendants in similar situations often receive probation or minimal sentences. Lisa felt a mix of anger and despair. She had poured her heart and soul into Marcus's defense, believing that the truth would prevail. Yet, the biases that permeated the courtroom had overshadowed her efforts. As she walked out of the courthouse, she could see Marcus's face in her mind, his disappointment, his fear, and the dreams that had been shattered. Determined not to let this defeat define her, Lisa took a deep breath and resolved to channel her frustration into action. She knew that the fight for justice extended beyond Marcus's case. It was a battle against a system that often failed Black defendants. In the days that followed, Lisa began to reach out to advocacy groups and organizations dedicated to criminal justice reform. She attended meetings, shared Marcus's story, and highlighted the racial disparities in sentencing. The more she spoke, the more she realized that she was not alone in her fight. There were countless others who had faced similar injustices, and together they could amplify their voices. One evening, Lisa attended a community forum focused on racial bias in the legal system. As she listened to speakers share their experiences, she felt a sense of solidarity. The stories echoed her own frustrations and fears, and she was inspired by the resilience of those who had fought against the odds. After the event, Lisa approached a seasoned civil rights attorney named David, who had dedicated his career to advocating for marginalized communities. "I need your guidance," she said earnestly. "I want to work on reform initiatives that address the disparities in sentencing. I can't let Marcus's case be just another statistic." David nodded, impressed by her passion. "You're on the right path, Lisa. It's crucial to raise awareness and push for legislative changes. Let's work together to create a coalition that can advocate for those who have been silenced." With David's mentorship, Lisa began to organize a coalition of attorneys, activists, and community leaders. They held meetings to strategize and develop a comprehensive plan to address racial bias in sentencing. Lisa took the lead in drafting a proposal for a public awareness campaign that would educate the community about the disparities in the legal system and advocate for policy changes. As the coalition grew, they launched a series of workshops and seminars aimed at empowering individuals to understand their rights and navigate the legal system. Lisa shared Marcus's story as a case study, illustrating the real-life implications of systemic racism. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life came forward, eager to join the fight for justice. One evening, as they gathered for a planning session, Lisa looked around the room and felt a surge of hope. "Together, we can make a difference," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "We have the power to challenge the status quo and demand accountability from our legal system." As the coalition gained momentum, they began to engage with local lawmakers, advocating for legislative reforms that would address sentencing disparities. Lisa and David met with representatives, sharing data and personal stories that highlighted the urgent need for change. They pushed for measures that would require judges to consider the racial implications of their sentencing decisions and to implement training programs focused on implicit bias. The journey was not without challenges. Some lawmakers were resistant to change, citing concerns about public safety and the need for strict sentencing. However, Lisa remained undeterred. She organized rallies, inviting community members to share their stories and demand justice. The movement began to gain traction, drawing media attention and public support. One day, as Lisa stood at a podium addressing a crowd of supporters, she felt a sense of purpose wash over her. "We are here to demand a fair and just legal system for everyone, regardless of the color of their skin," she declared passionately. "Marcus's story is just one of many, and together, we will ensure that no one else suffers the same fate." Months passed, and the coalition's efforts began to yield results. Local lawmakers agreed to hold hearings on sentencing disparities, and Lisa was invited to testify. As she prepared her statement, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The fight for justice was far from over, but she felt a renewed sense of hope. On the day of the hearing, Lisa stood before the committee, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was filled with lawmakers, advocates, and members of the community, all eager to hear her testimony. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the knowledge that she was not just speaking for Marcus, but for countless others who had been silenced by a biased system. "Thank you for allowing me to speak today," Lisa began, her voice steady. "I stand before you not just as an attorney, but as a representative of a community that has been disproportionately affected by racial bias in our legal system. My client, Marcus, is a prime example of how systemic racism can lead to unjust outcomes. As she recounted Marcus's story, detailing the circumstances of his arrest, the trial, and the harsh sentence he received, she could see the faces of the lawmakers shift from indifference to concern. She presented data showing that Black defendants were often sentenced more harshly than their white counterparts for similar offenses, emphasizing the need for reform. Justice should not be determined by the color of one's skin, she continued, her passion igniting the room. We must implement measures that ensure fairness in sentencing and hold our judicial system accountable for its biases. It is time for us to take a stand and demand change. After her testimony, Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had spoken her truth, and the response from the audience was overwhelmingly supportive. Several lawmakers expressed their gratitude for her insights and pledged to work on drafting legislation that would address the issues she had raised. Weeks turned into months as the coalition continued to advocate for change. Lisa and David worked tirelessly, meeting with lawmakers, organizing community events, and gathering support from various organizations. The momentum was building, and the public was becoming increasingly aware of the disparities in sentencing. Finally, the day arrived when the proposed legislation was set to be voted on. Lisa felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as she entered the legislative chamber. The atmosphere was electric, filled with advocates, community members, and media representatives eager to witness the outcome. As the vote was called, Lisa held her breath, her heart racing. One by one, the lawmakers cast their votes, and the tension in the room was palpable. When the final tally was announced, a cheer erupted from the crowd. The legislation had passed. It was a monumental step toward addressing racial bias in sentencing, and Lisa felt a surge of hope for the future. In the days that followed, the news of the legislative victory spread like wildfire. Lisa was invited to speak on local news programs, sharing the story of Marcus and the coalition's efforts. She felt a sense of pride knowing that their hard work had led to tangible change, but she also understood that this was just the beginning. With the new legislation in place, Lisa turned her focus back to Marcus. She had been in touch with him throughout the process, and now she was determined to help him secure a reduced sentence based on the reforms they had fought for. She filed a motion for reconsideration, presenting evidence of the racial bias that had influenced his original sentencing. As the hearing approached, Lisa felt a mix of hope and apprehension. She knew that the legal system could be unpredictable, but she was determined to fight for Marcus's freedom. On the day of the hearing, she stood before the judge once more, this time armed with the support of the new legislation. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady, "I am here today to request a reconsideration of my client's sentence in light of the recent legislative changes aimed at addressing racial disparities in sentencing. Marcus deserves a chance to rebuild his life, and we must ensure that justice is served fairly." The judge listened intently, and after a brief deliberation, he announced his decision. "Given the new legislation and the evidence presented, I am willing to reduce Marcus's sentence. He will be eligible for parole in 6 months." A wave of relief washed over Lisa as she turned to Marcus, who was seated in the courtroom. Tears of joy filled his eyes, and she felt a sense of triumph. They had fought against the odds, and together they had achieved a significant victory. As Marcus prepared for his release, Lisa reflected on the journey they had taken together. The fight for justice was far from over, but she felt empowered by the changes they had initiated. She continued to work with the coalition, focusing on expanding their efforts to address other areas of racial injustice within the legal system. Lisa organized community outreach programs to educate individuals about their rights and the importance of advocacy. She wanted to ensure that the momentum they had built would not fade away. The stories of those who had been affected by systemic racism needed to be heard, and she was committed to amplifying their voices. One evening, as she stood in front of a group of eager participants, she felt a sense of purpose wash over her. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Lisa began, her voice resonating with passion. "We are gathered not just to discuss the changes we've made, but to empower each other to continue this fight for justice. Every one of you has a story, and together, we can create a movement that demands accountability and equality in our legal system." As she spoke, She could see the determination in the faces of those in the room. Many were individuals who had faced their own struggles with the legal system, and they were eager to learn how they could advocate for themselves and their communities. Lisa shared practical tools for navigating the legal landscape, emphasizing the importance of understanding one's rights and the power of collective action. Change doesn't happen overnight, she reminded them. But with persistence, we can challenge the status quo. We must hold our lawmakers accountable and ensure that the voices of marginalized communities are heard. The energy in the room was palpable, and Lisa felt invigorated by the commitment of those around her. They discussed plans for future events, including town hall meetings and workshops aimed at educating the community about the new legislation and its implications. Lisa knew that the work ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on. As the months passed, Marcus prepared for his release from prison. Lisa visited him regularly, providing updates on the coalition's efforts and the changes that had taken place since his sentencing. Each visit brought a renewed sense of hope for both of them. Marcus was eager to reintegrate into society, but he also understood the challenges that lay ahead. On the day of his release, Lisa stood outside the prison gates, her heart racing with anticipation. When Marcus finally emerged, a broad smile spread across his face. He looked different, more resilient, more determined. As they embraced, Lisa felt a wave of joy wash over her. "Welcome back, Marcus," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "You've got a fresh start ahead of you." Marcus took a deep breath, soaking in the freedom he had longed for. "I can't thank you enough, Lisa. I never thought I'd see this day. I want to help others who've been through what I experienced. I want to be part of a change." Lisa nodded, inspired by his resolve. "You will be. We need voices like yours in this fight. Together, we can make a difference." With Marcus's release, Lisa and he began collaborating on community outreach initiatives. They organized events that focused on educating young people about their rights and the importance of advocacy. Marcus shared his story, emphasizing the need for awareness and understanding of the systemic issues that had affected him. As they traveled to schools and community centers, Lisa watched as Marcus connected with the audience. His authenticity and vulnerability resonated with many, and he became a powerful advocate for change. Together, they inspired others to share their stories and join the movement for justice. One evening, as they wrapped up a successful event, Lisa turned to Marcus. "I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together. Your story is making a real impact." Marcus smiled, his eyes shining with determination. "And it's just the beginning. We have to keep pushing for change, for everyone who's been affected by the system." As the coalition continued to grow, Lisa and Marcus found themselves at the forefront of a movement that was gaining national attention. Their efforts to address racial bias in sentencing had sparked conversations across the country, and they were invited to speak at conferences and panels. During one such event, Lisa stood before a diverse audience of legal professionals, activists, and community members. "We have the power to change the narrative," she said passionately. "It's not just about one case or one individual, it's about creating a system that is fair and just for all. We must work together to dismantle the barriers that perpetuate inequality." The audience erupted in applause, and Lisa felt a surge of hope. She knew that the fight for justice was ongoing, but the momentum they had built was undeniable. With each story shared and each voice amplified, they were creating a ripple effect that would resonate for generations to come. As the years went by, Lisa and Marcus continued their advocacy work, witnessing the gradual but significant changes in the legal system. New policies were implemented, and awareness of racial bias in sentencing became a focal point in discussions about criminal justice reform. One day, as they sat together reflecting on their journey, Marcus turned to Lisa. "I never imagined that my story would lead to this. We've made a difference, and it feels incredible." Lisa smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "You've been a beacon of hope for so many. Your courage to share your story has inspired countless others to stand up and fight for their rights. Together, we've shown that change is possible, but we must remain vigilant. The work is never truly done." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had both learned that advocacy was not just a momentary effort, but a lifelong commitment. As they discussed their plans for the future, they envisioned expanding their outreach programs, creating mentorship opportunities for young people, and collaborating with other organizations to amplify their impact. Let's start a scholarship fund for students who want to pursue law or social justice, Marcus suggested, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. We can help them navigate the challenges we faced and empower them to be the changemakers of tomorrow. Lisa's heart swelled with pride at Marcus's vision. That's a fantastic idea. We can create a network of support for those who want to enter the legal field and advocate for their communities. It's time to invest in the next generation. Months later, Lisa and Marcus officially launched the Scholarship Fund, naming it the Marcus Johnson Justice Scholarship. They held a community event to celebrate the occasion, inviting local leaders, educators, and families to join in the festivities. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and hope as they shared their vision for empowering young advocates. During the event, Marcus took the stage to speak. I stand here today not just as a recipient of justice, but as a testament to the power of resilience and community support. This scholarship is not just about financial assistance, it's about creating a legacy of change. I want to encourage each of you to pursue your dreams and fight for what is right. The crowd erupted in applause, and Lisa felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. They had come so far, and the impact of their work was beginning to take shape. As they awarded the first scholarships to deserving students, Lisa and Marcus knew they were planting seeds for a brighter future. As the scholarship gained recognition, Lisa and Marcus were invited to speak at national conferences and forums focused on criminal justice reform. They shared their experiences, emphasizing the importance of community engagement and advocacy in creating systemic change. During one particularly impactful conference, they were joined by other advocates from across the country, each sharing their stories of resilience and determination. Lisa took the stage, her voice steady and passionate. We are here today because we believe in a future where justice is truly blind. We must continue to challenge the biases that exist within our legal system and work together to create a society that values equality for all. The audience responded with a standing ovation, and Lisa felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that their movement was gaining traction, and the conversations they were sparking were crucial in shifting public perception and policy. As they returned home from the conference, Lisa and Marcus reflected on their journey. They had faced numerous challenges, but their commitment to justice had only grown stronger. They discussed their goals for the future, including expanding their scholarship program and launching a mentorship initiative for young advocates. Let's create a platform where students can connect with professionals in the field, Marcus suggested. We can provide guidance, support, and networking opportunities to help them succeed. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. That's a brilliant idea. We can host workshops, panel discussions, and even internships to give them real-world experience. It's time to build a community of advocates who can carry this work forward. As the years passed, the Marcus Johnson Justice Scholarship flourished, supporting dozens of students who went on to become lawyers, social workers, and community leaders. Lisa and Marcus watched with pride as their vision came to life, knowing that they had played a part in shaping the future of justice. One day, as they attended a graduation ceremony for the scholarship recipients, Lisa felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She watched as young advocates took the stage, sharing their stories and aspirations. Each one spoke of the impact that the scholarship had on their lives and their commitment to fighting for justice. As the ceremony concluded, Marcus turned to Lisa, his eyes shining with pride. This is what it's all about. We've created a legacy that will continue to inspire change long after we're gone. Lisa smiled, her heart full. And it all started with a commitment to one person's story. Imagine the impact we can have when we continue to share these stories and empower others to do the same. With their scholarship program thriving, Lisa and Marcus remain dedicated to their advocacy work. They continue to engage with lawmakers, pushing for further reforms and raising awareness about the ongoing issues of racial bias in the legal system. Their coalition expanded, bringing together diverse voices united in the fight for justice.